Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. Skibo Castle that Andrew Carnegie built between about 1901 and 1904 or 5 is not a castle. But when you were Andrew Carnegie, you could call it whatever the fuck you want. And so it's a castle. About 5 or 6 years after I bought this place, and Skibo had been for sale for a long, long time though. I was contacted by the same asshole agents that sold me this piece of shit, and they said we got a bigger estate, meaning they had more acreage, not a bigger building. And so I never went to look at it. I looked at pictures of it, and they had a beat up old golf course that hadn't been played on in 50, 60 years that Mr. Carnegie had built for himself. I had already sunk a whole bunch of money in this place, which I didn't know I was going to have to sink. So I passed. I said, no, thank you. And I said, but I probably pay 4 or 5 million pounds for it. That's it, because I knew I was going to have to put 25 million in it based on what I had spent here. And so it went unsold for a few years, and then a hedge fund guy, Peter DeSavary first bought it, and then he tried to turn it into a club. Peter DeSavary is a hotel guy here, still alive, a year or two older than myself. And then he sold it to a hedge fund guy, who I happen to know from New York. And the hedge fund guy paid 8 or 9 million, and then allegedly has put in about between 10 and 15 million. And I know he has to put a lot more than that, but he's embarrassed to say how much he put in. And but is it a coincidence? So Andrew Carnegie, who you saw last night, that my estate and the Carnegie estate look similar. Is it a coincidence? Probably not. So when you talk about goals and aspirations, if you really believe it and you visualize it, which I visualized, again, I told you I thought we were going to have 2 tennis courts, we were going to have a moat and governesses, nannies, we had plenty of those. And lo and behold, 17 months later, I know that, not just because I haven't seen your goals yet, there's several disbelievers in the room. Just like I took a piss this morning at 6:45. I saw you, all of you running out my penis into the water, with a little thing. And then when I flushed it, there goes the fat bald guy. Oh, there's the second fat bald guy as they went down. Because you don't believe. And even though I'm making an issue of it, I don't always make an issue of it, but just as the Goomba brother from Cuba, Cuban gangster said, you're just there to tick a box and you'll come up with a reason why you can't do it, and it's 2022, and Peña did it in 1826, and Josh was a Michelangelo protege, and right? But you can't believe that this happened in 17 months. And I've been copying the Carnegie model for forever. And lo and behold, my thing doesn't look that much different than his. When you go down to Dunfermline, where he was born, you can't hardly find, this is a slight Trump exaggeration, a street, a library, a school that doesn't have his name on it. Yet, he's never received, one award. Not one, not an honorable mention, go fuck yourself for being a midget Scotsman. How's that possible? In New York, the symphony, Carnegie Symphony, the school, Carnegie Tech, a bunch of other things. Supposedly, he gifted something like between 2,500 and 3,000 libraries, and not one fucking honorable mention. From Queen Victoria, when he would have first started his shit, through the king and then the recent queen, God rest her soul. Now maybe King Charles is going to give him, some shit. Well, how is that possible? One of the wealthiest guys that ever walked the face of the earth, and one of the individuals and his trust beyond him to give gift money like that, to not even get an honorable mention, go kiss my ass, go fuck yourself. Because he was a ruthless motherfucker. He killed people. Had people killed, ran to the UK when they were chopping him up like chopped liver, so he could be distant, plausible deniability, remember? So he could be distanced from the bad things that his people did. The Pinkertons, which were started in Glasgow, which are now owned by the same firm that bought G4, and is the biggest private security company in the world. He brings in his Pinkerton goons to chop him up. Yet he's revered. Steve Jobs haven't got any fucking awards either. And I can go down the list. Because at some level, somebody figures out these guys were assholes. At some level. You can put your name on as many libraries as you want, as many bridges as you want. But at some level, and I don't know if it's karma, I don't know that. But I do know that it's not a coincidence that they look alike. Because this is all I've thought about, not my entire adult life, but most of my adult life. And when you think about most, happens. So getting back to your goals, which we're not going to talk about right this minute, they will happen if you think about nothing else. Hence, all your actions, or almost all your actions, will be driven towards the achievement of those goals, as with me. As with me. Elon, since he was a little boy, and mine didn't start when I was a little boy. I had a lot of other things on my mind when I was a little boy. He wanted to go to Mars since he was a little kid. I mean, maybe that's because, I don't know why. But his parents did something right. His parents did a few things wrong, Elon, as well. I'm not suggesting that his parents were the models like Josh Kim. But Josh Kim was a child prodigy. He was Michelangelo with a 290 IQ. Wrong, but getting back to the Goomba brothers, you'll come up with a reason. And if you don't come up with a reason, your significant other will come up with a reason, or your mom and dad will come up with a reason. But somebody's going to come up with a reason why you're full of shit when you walk off the estate tomorrow. And default's a motherfucker. It's a bitch. But if you believe as an individual, and even though, most of you believe in a higher power, and you've never seen that higher power, but you believe on faith. So as long as you have the faith, as I have for, long time, now it's not even, as I said the last 2 or 3 days, QLA is my default. I mean, when I go into default, which, I can't tell the difference because QLA is my life. I breathe it, eat it, sleep it. And of course, now the last 20, almost 30 years, I've interfaced with you off and on, not just through seminars, but through some of the companies that I've had the privilege of being chairman of. And so but you're not going to have that benefit. Now, a little later on, we're going to have your young colleague here from Austria that I only found out late yesterday afternoon or early evening, depending on how you want to measure it, that he has done 16 deals since the seminar at Heathrow in January 2020. And he's going to get up here and share some information and answer some questions. And he didn't have to come to the seminar. I mean, he was already doing it. Okay? He took action. Several other of you in this room went to that seminar in January 2020. Okay? And arguably, I haven't asked, and I'm not going to ask, what you've accomplished, if anything. But there are kids, boys and girls and its that didn't attend in January 2020. There's done some supernatural stuff. You didn't even have to come to the seminar, which was originally my swan song. Didn't turn out that way. And by serendipity, I almost retired just before the greatest geometric assistance that the QLA model ever had. Corona fucking motherfucking Corona. That close to packing it in. And you know how you see professional athletes retire and then normally money brings them back out of retirement. I had a discussion with one of my favorite lawyer, Tim, and I said, what bullshit would I have come up with to unretire? I would have been just like the other phony cocksuckers. But I didn't have to do that because as life would have it, I decided not to retire. Like I've said, the 5 best things that ever happened to me, Sally, the 3 kids, and Corona motherfucking Corona. The only luck I've had is bad luck, except for Corona. So one of the pandemics of the last 1,000 years is my good fortune, and your good fortune. And in addition to Corona, we got the fucking war. God damn. God, why are you doing this for me? Why? Allah? And then on top of it, it couldn't get any better, motherfucking interest rates. And I've been screaming for 10 years, the lowest interest rates in 5,000 fucking years. What else can happen? A nuclear bomb. And it's not going to be it will not be a small controlled device. I guarantee that. Because once the first one goes off, there's going to be a plethora. Just like in those sci-fi movies. Atlanta, Dallas, D.C., Munich, Berlin, Paris. I don't know if they're going to get to Switzerland or not, but Switzerland's still going to be saying, we're neutral. And then I just recently found out one of my lawyers since the 90s were Andrew Carnegie's first law firm in the UK. Fuck! And it's all this by accident. If you're stupid enough to think it's all by accident, you deserve to stay poor. And if you think that this isn't an accident, you deserve to stay poor, because it's not. And the fact that I didn't buy Skibo, and then when I went there a couple years ago for my birthday, I was glad I didn't buy it, but all this shit works, guys and gals. It works. But it starts with you got to believe in yourself. And then that transfers into believing in the system and that you can make the system work because you've already seen a lot of monkeys. Now, some of you probably, I won't say all of you, but some of you in this room think, well, fuck, if this tub of shit can do it. Jesus Christ. Ain't that right, Rabbi? Jesus Christ. And when Gerard said that he had quit, but I didn't really quit because I've never quit in anything in my life, but I saw people on the Zoom call, Jesus, that moron, monkey, retard. I don't like you using that metaphor to have to do it. But I don't give a fuck what metaphor you have to use to get to do it. I don't care. I'm way beyond that. 25 years ago, I said, well, that ain't right, that he thinks, blah, blah, blah. Piss on that. I don't care about that now. All I want to know is I want a W in the column. That's it. I don't give a shit that everybody fell down as we're running across the goal line and there was nobody defending. I don't care about that. I don't care about it. Woody Hayes, about 40 years ago, was one of my idols because he had a very similar management style than myself. They were playing Vanderbilt, Ohio State. Now, Ohio State's football program was a machine. And Vanderbilt didn't really have a football program at the time. And it was tied 0-0, and somebody got around the right end and is running up the sideline and is going to score against Ohio State. He took his baseball cap off. He took his, at those times, the headset off, threw it down, and tackled the fucker himself. That was the end of his football career. He said, I didn't give a shit. I couldn't let that prick, pussy cunt from Bandy score on us. There are certain things that are worth that. I would have done the same thing. I mean, not a tackle. I probably would have just tripped him, you know. But, and there's certain things, in my judgment, that are worth dying for still. But you got to believe. You got to believe. Andrew Carnegie comments, and remember, he's my holy mentor, virtually. And his bedroom is right here. And his daughter's bedroom, where we stayed, is right here. And his wife's bedroom is at the other end of the castle, where you need a long-range bomber with refueling capability to find it. And his suite is about 1.5 times this size. His daughter's suite is about this size. And his wife's suite, this is an exaggeration, it's about as big as his platform. He wanted a son. What did he get? A daughter. God bless her. But he wanted a son. Whether the rumors, you know, that he only slept with his wife once to conceive a kid, I don't know if that's all, you know, conjecture. But comments about Mr. Carnegie. Yes, sir. Doc.
He, even though he had a mentor who did a lot for him, was like a father figure, when it came to when the shoe was on the other foot and it was he that required assistance financially from Andrew Carnegie, it wasn't going to happen because his priority was his dream.
Gee, what a surprise.
And Correct. He wouldn't give that up for anyone.
Guy helped him out. I mean, he did more than helped him out. And what was his reward? That's the real world. It doesn't happen to be the real world with me. But then again, you know, 40 years ago, one of the big icons who's still around said, "You're not tough enough, Dan. Otherwise, you would have been the first trillionaire on the planet." And if I'm not tough enough, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what the fuck are you? Because there is some place I draw the line. But today is my holy day for me. I already explained to you last night what's happening today. I could hardly sleep last night. I was so fucking happy. We're going to crush the life out of a whole bunch of people today. Erase their motherfucking DNA. I couldn't hardly sleep. I just slept with my eyes open, looking up at the darkness. Oh, God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Revenge is sweet. And there's no money involved in this. It would have been sweeter if there was money involved, but there's no money involved. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Other than he was a ruthless bastard. Yes?
Yes, Mr. Carnegie from a very young age had a vision. So he saw where he wanted to be. He saw how his father failed and said he's going to make sure that moving forward that he take care of his family. And he did just that.
He was a mama's boy. I was a mama's boy. I mean, I only have a few cousins that are still alive. Danny was connected to his mother's hip. Now, part of that's true because my mother didn't allow me to crawl. I've said this before many times on YouTube. Didn't allow me to crawl because we only had a couple of changes of clothes. And when babies crawl, they get dirty. Okay? My mother didn't allow me to crawl. And it's one of the reasons why I'm uncoordinated, because it's been proven medically that if you don't crawl and you don't, your muscles and your, don't develop, and you get an uncoordinated old man like I am. But she wouldn't let me crawl, and she had me on her hip. So when my cousins remember growing up, I was attached to my mom's hip because she wouldn't let me down off the ground, to the ground until I could walk. So I never crawled, I just walked. So there's some truth in that. But he was a mama's boy. And when they came back to the little town that they were from, in the carriage. She wanted the mom, that is, wanted to make sure that everybody knew who she was. And now there's two different stories. He left when he was 7 years old in the belly of an old wooden ship by himself, without his family, and living with the rats in the ship. And the other story is he left 12 years old with his father to go to the United States because his business had, he was like in the buggy whip business when they invented cars, because the looms that he used, or he didn't use, weren't competitive. And there's all kinds of things. One of the things that I thought was told really what kind of person he was is when he didn't go to the Civil War and he bought somebody for $800. That's a lot of money back then. And then, of course, the guy that he bought to take his place in the Civil War got killed. And to the best of my knowledge, he never mentioned it one time. Not one time. It's only the historians that delve into his past, or some of it very nefarious. But that's it. When I say that's a special kind of person, I don't mean it in a positive way. I mean it in a negative way. What else about Mr. Carnegie? Yes, sir, in the back.
He seemed to bully his competition to take over market share in the industry. So he would basically not only rule with an iron fist, but he bullied his way to the top.
Gee, what a surprise. Now, I'm not suggesting you bully. You don't have to bully. You have a program, a model, not a journey, but a process that when you follow it, it creates enormous wealth. Depending on when you stop the process, depends on how much wealth you create. You saw the charts that if you started in 1993 and used the same Warren Buffett example, which Warren Buffett says in the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, and he says it in his annual report, nobody's ever invested like this, but if you did, how much money you'd have? About 3 or 4 times more money than the Berkshire Hathaway model. Now, Warren Buffett is known as the grandfather, the granddaddy of all investors, okay? Because he has, if not arguably the best ROI, he has one of the best ROIs. Because if you don't count reinvesting all the fucking dividends and all that shit like he does, I mean, there's 2 or 3 other guys that have outperformed him. But even his investing all the stuff back, his return on investment is only 30% greater. And I'm not saying only, but it's only 30% greater than it just if you threw a dart in the fucking Dow Jones. And he credits a lot of his success to length of that he's been doing this, age, and compounded interest. But he is a tough guy. Now, for those of you that are old enough, about 20 years ago, more or less, on 60 Minutes. Is there still a program in America called 60 Minutes? Okay. I forget who was doing it might have been Mike Wallace was doing the interviewing of his granddaughter. And about 40 minutes into the interview, I don't know if slipped or if she was going to say this anyway. She talked about what it was like to be the granddaughter of Warren Buffett, and that he was hard, nasty. There was only one way, his way or the highway, et cetera, et cetera. That program ran from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock Eastern Coast time, Sunday. By Monday at noon Eastern Coast time, that whole sliver of the Buffett family had been disinherited. Disinherited. So her father, her mother, her sisters, her aunts, gone. And for those people that will talk, and there are not too many people that will talk, and his 3 kids don't talk at all, he's harsh. Although he's the granddaddy, he's the Santa Claus of the investment gurus, but he's not. I don't know anybody that's the Santa Claus of that group, and I know most of them, But so he's tough as nails. And he's had other people that were close to him, not his 3 kids. He gave each one of his, as legend has it, he gave each one of his kids many, many years ago $1 billion to manage. Well, the fees off $1 billion is, income forever. But he's hard. And he's cajovial, laughing and everything. What else about Andrew Carnegie? Yes, sir.
Even right up to the very end, he was wondering if he could get even more.
As you guys accumulate wealth, there's never enough. There's never enough. And when he accepted the 450 or 80 million, whatever it's interesting. Again, when I got thrown out of Great Western, the company was worth about between 450 and 470 million, depending on the market fluctuation, etc. He accepted a check, allegedly, between 450 and 470 million. Accident? Serendipity? Or fucking destiny? Because I patterned everything in my life, almost everything in my life, other than having my wife live 600 yards away in a little bedroom and allegedly not having sex with her, after him. I don't think so. So in that regard, I do believe in karma and what comes around goes around. But he was a tough fucker. And he's that tall. And I told you that when we were at the castle, Skibo, the only thing that is discernible is that all the door handles are not where a normal door handle would be, like here. All the door handles are like here. And I don't know if they keep all the doors open on purpose, so you don't have to use the door handle. But I know when we closed up our suite and the door handles, something's not right here. And and there are pictures on social media, me standing next to his bust, and at the bottom of the stairs, etc. And when we were there, it was Corona, and so there was only about 8 or 9 people staying there. And it's a private club. They have 200 members, or thereabouts 200 members, and you pay. And so the golf course is terrific, in great shape, and the food's pretty good. Not as good as the food here, but he had goals, as you alluded to. And a couple of you in the room, allegedly, had pretty tough upbringings that maybe you can relate to Mr. Carnegie's upbringings. But he stayed focused. Some people say he sold out to J.P. Morgan because of, and started giving away his money. And he almost went nuts giving away his money because of the way he earned the money. I don't believe that for a second, that he turned into a philanthropist because he had guilt. But it's a popular myth, and so at least I'd be the only one that wants to put a pin in that balloon. But almost all the guys and gals that have created generational wealth turn to philanthropy. Maybe there's 1 out of 1,000 that doesn't. Now, why do you think that is? Guilt. Only one reason. Guilt. They did what was necessary to fulfill that dream. And then when you look back retrospectively, which I love that word, English word, retrospectively, some of the things that they did, perhaps, if they had another opportunity, they wouldn't do again. Rockefeller, I can go through all the names. John D. Rockefeller IV, who's, I think, he may still be a senator. But 4 or 5 years ago when he was interviewed, and of course he's the beneficiary of Rockefeller I, who is a ruthless old bastard, also a Bible thumper. But we're not proud of how our great-great-grandfather generated his wealth, and so it's our job to for many of us, it's our job to distribute the wealth as best we can. to the poor, to the uneducated, et cetera, et cetera. But they all turn to philanthropy, but they don't have any guilt when they're cutting, slashing, leaving them for dead. Now, when I say faith in yourself, yeah, but in addition to faith in yourself, the model is that you don't leave people necessarily to bleed out in the street. And as you asked me, how tough do I have to get? Significantly tougher than you are now. But I'd say that to everybody in the room. Because if you were tougher, you'd have more net worth. And even though money's not everything, it's the most quantifiable and it's not the only thing, but one of the only things people keep track of. Okay, YouTube.